I always say people judge you on their capacity. Like, oh, I couldn't do that. So then therefore you shouldn't be able to do that. You know what I mean?
That's
and
a
so,
beautiful sentiment.
yeah. Well, I mean, I've had 9 kids and now I'm jumping ahead, but I've had 9 kids be like, I could never do that. And I'm like, but you couldn't, but I can. So.
Kate, I'm so happy you're here. Thank you for coming today.
Yes, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
You started Foster and Heart.
Mm-hmm.
You started it because you had a need. You were fostering children on your own, and you realized there was this real lack of housing and support and services for foster kids that really obviously need these things.
Yes.
Talk to me about this. How did you become a foster parent?
Yeah.
How did you start backing into, hey, there's this big dearth of services? Like, tell me the whole thing.
Well, I've always had a heart for foster care and adoption since I was a very, very young girl. And so I moved here actually in 2007. And as I was moving here, I just felt like that unction in my heart that I wanted to be involved in some way in the foster care system and the adoption world. And so I didn't feel at that time it was my time to fully dive in. So I decided to just get involved in the ways I could. And I reached out to the people who ran the training courses for prospective foster parents. And I started hosting them. And then I would help with the children. I also did support groups, monthly support groups for children. And I just volunteered. I was like, okay, I can't foster right now. It's not my time to do that, but I want to get involved. And so I did that for about 10 years, actually. So I got to know a lot of the caseworkers, a lot of people in health and welfare, and just my heart, and then get around foster kids. And so just my heart for kids grew and grew and grew. And I decided in basically the end of 2017, okay, it's my time. I'm not going to wait for all the ducks to line up to take this step of passion and something I really want to do in my life. So I signed up, and in 2018, the summer of 2018, I got my first foster daughter. And then quickly after that, I said yes to a 2-year-old in August. And when I went to pick her up, it was like I said yes to the 2-year-old, but she had 4 other siblings. And so I saw this huge need where it was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that, sibling groups are being separated in foster care, because basically they're looking for anybody who can take a child that night, right? They don't have a bed for that child. So they're just like, can you take one? Can you take one? Can you take one? And they split, who are now my children who I've adopted. They split them all up. And so it took about 9 months, and I was able to get them all under my roof finally. And then within a year started the process of adoption, just because of the circumstances with the bio parents. It went pretty quickly to adoption. And so basically just right there, I saw this need here in the Treasure Valley. Not only are we needing general homes, which is what I do. I take, like a husband, wife, or single, whoever opens up their home to children. Not only do we need more and more of those general homes, but we needed a safe place for siblings to go to so they wouldn't be separated like my kids.
Okay, so you just went from I moved here in 2007 to I adopted 5 kids and there's this huge need in like 45 seconds. So we're gonna have to walk. We're gonna have to walk this back.
Sorry.
God bless you.
I'm getting over a cold.
You're fine. You're fine. It's no. I got all the time. Cough as much as you want.
Yes. So that's basically. I can go back to some more of that.
Let's go back. Let's go back. And again, this is very near and dear to my heart. My dad fostered a lot of children, and he ended up adopting after me. I was the youngest of 4. My parents split up, and then he adopted 7 after me.
Okay.
And my 2 youngest siblings are actually living in the area, which is super awesome.
Amazing.
They're teenage
I love
girls. Yeah, they're super cool, and it's really fun because I have my oldest is 12. And my sisters are kind of close in age. So it's like the aunties and my son are actually, they're almost contemporaries. They're just, they're just past that barrier where they can like hang out, but it's still cool. And I still enjoy kind of, it's interesting being a parent with my dad as he's parenting because he lives close by too. So again, walk me back. So you start helping, okay, which is at the core of everything. And I was talking to somebody just yesterday about the nature of stopping waiting for the stars to align.
Yeah.
And if you have value somewhere, and it's something that he criticized this current generation of having the inability to just start adding value. Mm-hmm. So you start adding value. You're like, look, I don't know where this is going to go. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to start hosting these foster events to help people connect with people offering services and support.
Yeah.
You start doing that, even though you don't have foster kids and you're not really related to the community aside from like a passion to help people.
Yeah, exactly.
What happens once you start hosting these events? MTU Studios is the proud producer for the Ada County Sheriff Podcast, the Idaho Wildlife Federation Podcast, the State Representative Ted Hill Podcast, the Idaho State PTA Podcast, and many more. If you or your organization is thinking about starting a podcast, MTU Studios would love to help. Just check out mtustudios.com.
Well, I always say I dipped my toes in that community. And once you kind of dip your toes, then you're like, okay, you're exposed to the reality of what's really going on.
So 2 things then. First, bring the microphone with you if you're moving.
Oh, goodness. Sorry.
No, because I want to hear you. And second, what's that reality? When you say you're exposed to the reality of the foster world and you start seeing it and there's no going back, what is that?
Well, I think, you just kind of think that problem is for somebody else, and then you put a face to a number. You hear like, okay, there's 1,500 foster kids in the state of Idaho. Well, now I've got a face and I got a name to one of those kids in the state of Idaho. And it just compelled my heart to want to do more and help her or him or whoever it was that I was meeting. And so I was like, okay, this is a real situation, a real story. This is someone's life, not just a number that you see and, a graph or whatever of what's happening in foster care. Because there's 450,000 children across the United States that are waiting in foster care right now. And I think 100,000 of those are waiting to be adopted. So you see that number and then you meet a child who is one of the ones in Idaho who's waiting to be adopted. And it just opens up your world to wow, there is a reality right here that I want to be a part of helping in some way, shape, or form. And so basically I just started hosting these events, and then I got around the department, learned their heart, caseworkers, and they'd always encourage me you would be the best foster mom, you should do it. And again, going back to, I just thought, well, I had to be married. I just assumed, you kind of just think you got to own a house. You got to have your life all together. And, so I just kept putting it off and off until I felt like finally at one point I was like, I'm just not going to wait till all that comes together. I'm just going to take that step and trust that God is going to meet me where I'm at and use me in the capacity that I can offer and give to this foster care world and community.
Yeah, the limiting beliefs and the hesitation people develop when they a very dear friend of mine who's also a registered foster family. He told me a long time, he was like, listen, never hesitate on a kind impulse. Mm-hmm. And I've been around a lot of people. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Yeah. And I've been around a lot of people who really do that, where I'd say, oh, I'd like to do this. And they're like, oh, okay, but if you do, it's going to set a precedent. Or oh, we really want her or him to, and it's all of these, well, wait, if you do that for that person, you got to do that for all, it's oh my gosh, man, I just wanted to do something nice for someone. Something.
Yeah.
So you realize that, one, some of your limiting beliefs initially were incorrect. You don't have to be married. You don't have to own some 4,000 square foot house. You don't have to, quote unquote, have your life together in those very, superficial and whatever, in those ways.
Yeah.
And then you just decide, okay, look, it's time to go. Mm-hmm. It's time to just take the leap and help somebody.
Yeah.
So you sign up.
Yeah. And what's interesting of that is I signed up and then instantly got all the naysayers, People are like, you shouldn't do that.
Who?
Just
Who
people,
even knew you signed up?
Well, just starting the process, I would tell people I'm starting to become.
What, your friends?
Or just people, community, maybe posting on social media.
Get rid of those friends. Yeah. Unfollow those people. Block them.
Well,
those people stink.
People I always say people judge you on their capacity. Oh, I couldn't do that. So then therefore you shouldn't be able to do that. You know what I mean?
That's a beautiful sentence.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've had 9 kids, and now I'm jumping ahead, but I've had 9 kids be like, I could never do that. And I'm like, but you couldn't, but I can. So I'm going to do what I can do. So basically going back to that, I signed up, started the process. I'm going through training. And then, all the people are like, well, foster kids, they've got issues and they've got behaviors and they're going to need a dad. And I'm like, I'm not saying that's not true, but I also believe that they need one caring, loving adult to step in and walk them through what they're going through. And I felt like God called me to do this. I'm going to do my part and he's going to meet me where he meets me, The limitation
of saying, hey, there are a broad swath of needs and you don't fit all of those needs, therefore you should not be engaged in the solution is so horrendous.
Yeah.
Which is maybe they do need a dad. And maybe these kids have been through something. And all of that's true. but they also need someone to deeply care about
Yeah.
them, offer them continuity day by day, offer them a safe house and a safe meal. Like
Yeah.
those are also true. And if
100%.
you wait for all the stars to align with checking every single box, we'll never, like these kids are just waiting and
Yeah.
waiting and waiting.
And you miss your opportunity to be impactful. Like if I'd waited, I mean, at this point, I'm still not married. I would have missed my children. I would have missed all the kids. I would have missed even creating this organization because my kids are what led me to see that bigger need in the community. So I feel like, no, it was God's timing about it and just taking that step of faith, you know. I feel like there's a Steve Harvey. He always talks about taking that leap and taking that jump. And it's
jump.
Yeah. And I'm like, that
jump.
is literally what I did. I didn't know the end, what was going to happen. I just took a step. And my thought was like, I'm going to foster one child. You know, I was like, I'm going to help one kid. I can help one child. And then it's turned into so much more than that. And I'm just so blessed. Every kid, you know, has made an impact. You know, our hope is that we make an impact in theirs, but the reality is that they make an impact in ours.
Right.
I know.
So this is a lot. I love it though. All right, we got to keep going here.
Okay.
So I don't want to lose my train of thought with this story. Okay, so you sign up, a bunch of Russian trolls come after you online, and just ridiculousness, and you get a call saying, "Hey, we have a kid that we need you to take." Mm-hmm. What was that? What was that first call?
What's so interesting, I actually videotape it because, you know, Instagram, that's the best thing about it is like I got a call for a 2-year-old and I happened to be at work and I was like, I got to go home and get ready. Because I was like, I just want to like even have like the best presentation meeting this child. She's only 2, but I was like, I want to put my best foot forward for her. So like, can you pick her up at 1:00? And so I ran home.
It's 9:00.
Yeah.
3 hours to shower and get ready. Okay,
Yeah,
I can probably make it.
It's so true. I was like, because I was at work, I was like, okay, I gotta go. I'm gonna go. So I went home, got ready, went to pick her up. And I mean, just the nerves. It's almost like you have no idea what is about to happen because you've said yes to this child and all you know is like, hey, it's a little girl who's 2. I don't know anything about her. And my heart instantly for her was like, I love this kid. I haven't even seen her. I haven't met her, anything. So when I get there, they were pulling up in a van and they start funneling out of the car. And I'm like, which one is mine? You know, because I was like, there's so many little kids. And she points to her and I just instantly fell in love with her, but not only her, but all of her siblings. But at that moment, they decided they'd already placed them all in different homes. And so I had to drive off with just my 2-year-old. And that heartbreak she went through instantly was like so excited to see me. I'm walking to the car. I put her in the car seat and her heart broke. She realized like I'm leaving my siblings. And I was like, this should not happen. And I understand it happens because they need kids in beds, right? So there's like 2 sides to it. Like they want to keep them together, but they also absolutely need them in a home that night. And most people aren't open to taking on a sibling group of 5, just like that, within 3 hours, you know? So I just really was like, okay, I have such a heart to take all of them. And they were like, no, you're single. You can't.
You don't own the 4,000 square foot house.
You cannot.
You got no man.
I actually was in a 2-bedroom townhouse in the North End. And so, I definitely was not prepared for 5. And so from that point on, I just kind of started to prove myself. I started like, just keep pushing and like, okay, so they ended up moving 2 in. 2 months later, they moved in 2 more of the siblings. And then
so now it's you and the 3 siblings.
Yep.
There are still 2 more out there.
There's still 2 more. Yeah.
You have all 3 in your 2-bedroom townhouse on the North End.
Yep.
Okay.
All of us just squished in there. And then about 4 months after that, their brother moved in, who was 1.5 at the time. And then 3 weeks after he moved in, then I got my youngest one, Lyric. And she was 4 months at the time. So actually going back to when I first met my kids, there was only 4 of them. The bio mom was pregnant. So in the process of that, she had another baby. And so it went from a sibling group of 4 to a sibling group of 5. All in the time
Had
frame.
the 4 ever met their baby sister before she got moved in?
Yeah, because I really, really try with every child I get to have that open relationship with the bio parents. And so, yeah, she was 2 days old and the bio mom called me and asked me to bring the kids to meet their sister. So yeah, we met her at 2 days old and then we'd see her here and there throughout it. So yeah, I try to and I like to do visits outside of the department. So go somewhere where it's not like that, just sitting in a room and people are watching you, make it more natural for the kids, especially so they can see bio family in a natural setting.
Okay, so you're now 9 months into this. You have all 5, including a 4-month-old, and you said you had 5 under 4?
Yeah, so my oldest was 4 and my youngest was 4 months. So they were all born within a year of each other.
Okay. Before you started fostering these children, what were you doing professionally?
I was a kids pastor at a church. So I'd worked with kids all my life. And so when they'd made that kind of like comment, like, you can't handle 5, I was like, oh, I'll show you. Yes, I can. 5 is nothing, right? So, but the funny thing is when I signed up, I wanted to do elementary age, like 5 years old to 12, because that was like my niche at the church. That's what my, age group that I loved working with. And I ended up with 5 under 4. So it was just like, you just never know. It's like, it's kind of an adventure in itself. But I knew when I met them, I knew I had that, I was drawn to them and just knew, like, I can do this. I can take all 5 of them.
Okay. Still in the 2-bedroom.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And I actually what I did was I took the smaller room and gave the kids the master. So all 5 kids went in the master and I took the little room to make it work.
Man, my dad had essentially like a dormitory set up in his house.
Yeah.
Too. Like it was all 7 kids in 2 rooms, and he had built an additional master. So he gave one group of the kids the original master that had its own bed and bathroom, and then the other room, the like girls had the
Oh, so like, your dad and I think we have.
Think you got similar energy. I think you'd be just fine hanging out together. So, all right. So at this point, it's 2019, 2020.
Absolutely, 2019.
Okay. So 2019, before the world went crazy.
Yep.
And you're a single person working still as a youth pastor with five kids that you were fostering, because you hadn't started an adoption process.
No, not yet.
Correct? Okay. So you're fostering these kids in your 2-bedroom place. You're not still in the 2-bedroom place, right?
Oh, goodness. Now you're going to ask me that. I was until right before I adopted them, 2020 of February.
Okay. So what started happening that you were like, hey, this is probably not, like, maybe we could do something else, right? Because you have since built a foundation around supplying larger accommodations and helping people with stuff. So what started happening besides the obvious, which is you have 6 people in a 2-bedroom and like, that's a lot. So what started happening?
Basically, for how I came up with Foster and Heart, is that what you're asking?
Well, no, you came up, it's my understanding that you established Foster and Heart as a response to your real world needs with like, hey, if I am going to be this foster person, I'm having these problems, and I bet other people are having analogous problems. Yeah. You go out looking for solutions, and the solutions don't exist. Yeah. So you create a solution.
Yeah. So basically, I started the process of adoption. Adoption takes a little while. Sure. So I was meeting with the caseworker, and I just mentioned to her, I was like, you guys should have a house for sibling groups to go to so they don't have to go through this. And she just flippantly threw it out there and said that I should make one. And I was like, okay, I guess see a need, fill the need. That's something that we do. So I started researching it here in the Treasure Valley just to see, is this something that is a need here that I could help fill this need? And I was like, yeah, this would definitely, there's so many large sibling groups coming into care, and this would definitely keep them from having that trauma. They're already losing their home. Yeah, right. They're already losing sometimes their school. They're losing their friends, their neighborhood. Like, we should not be separating them from their siblings if at all possible. So I realized there is a need, kind of put it out there to the community. And it was amazing the response our community had too, just wanting to support this. And then, going to health and welfare, and they were so supportive of it too. So I was like, this is actually going to work. This is amazing. And so, yeah, we started the process. We had a community member come around and was like, hey, I've got a home that's for rent. Do you guys want to, we feel like the Lord's telling us to give you this home to use. So that's kind of how all the pieces started lining up. And then we worked with the state to come up with a contract and a licensing and all that. And then we were able to open this home. And it took us, so the idea came right around January, February of 2020. And we didn't open our first home until December of 2022. So it did take some time. And, there was, along with anything, right? There's the roller coaster, like, it's not happening. It is happening. It's not. But when we opened those doors, it was December 12th of 2022. It was like the most incredible. It was like my adoption day for my kids. I was like, wow, they're mine. And then this is happening. And it's like, wow, this actually happened. And then instantly just having kids coming and being able to meet that need was just I couldn't even describe the word that I could say to say what it feels like to be able to meet that need and see it actually work out and have the kids say, I had a little girl at my house the other day. She was like, Kate, thank you for making Mimi's house, because without it, I wouldn't be with my siblings. And like the kids know these things. They know that they wouldn't be together if they didn't have a safe place like Mimi's or Bubba's house that we've made.
Okay. There's
I know. And I probably am jumping way off. We'll go back.
Listen, you're great. You're great. So you decide, okay, you don't live at Mimi's or Bubba's house?
Yeah. So actually, when I first started, my heart was to have house parents at each home, and then we'd have staff members come in and work also to support those house parents.
So you'd have like a couple or that's saying, hey, I will actually live here.
Yeah. We actually had someone commit to it. And then in the process of licensing, the state of Idaho actually got rid of that model. And so we couldn't do that. We had to go with, so we have direct care staff. So the 24/7, there is a wake staff that take care of the kids that are there to meet their needs, but there's no adult that lives there. So every room is filled with a child. So we actually have 30, between the two homes, we have Mimi's house, which is in Meridian, and Bubba's house, which is in Nampa. We have 32 staff members.
How many kids come through? And are these homes exclusively for sibling groups, or are they do you essentially service everyone? You try to stay open for.
Our main focus is the sibling group, but we also do take single children. But we try to keep those homes available for them, because single kids are just easier to place in a general home. But we try to keep them open for, sibling groups. But yes, if someone calls us midnight, I got a 12-year-old girl that needs a home, and we have a bed open, we're gonna take her.
Sure. Now, these homes are not designed to be like long-term fostering, right? Mm-hmm. This is like, hey, you have a sibling group, something horrendous has befallen their parents, whatever it might be. There are 4 of them. They need a bed. It's 3:30 right now on a Friday, and they need a bed to sleep in tonight. The old model, or in the absence of your foundation, what happens is those kids get dispersed into 4 different houses. Mm-hmm. Your model is, hey, we're not going to be the ones that take care of everyone forever, but what we are going to do is offer a spot for these 4 kids to not be separated until we can find parent groups or foster families that can take on 4, or at least take on as many as they can, because you don't want to separate. You don't want to separate.
That is absolutely it. So we basically take them on. Our goal is that by 90 days, we have worked with health and welfare to find the right family for the sibling group. So we check in with them constantly. They have a whole placement team that is constantly looking to see, hey, we've got a sibling group of 3, would you be interested? And then we talk about, some of their likes, some of their needs, some of their behaviors, just so that the family's prepared. Sometimes the families get to come meet them, and it's a softer transition before they just up and move to a new home. So it's just turned out to be a beautiful thing, actually, that we get to also be a part of finding the right fit. And what's interesting is, I don't know if it's interesting, but every one of these kids are my kids. I'm like very protective of them. I want the best for all of them. So I also want to work to make sure that they find the right family for them that they're going to go to. But yeah, we try to not keep kids longer than 90 days. We will keep kids if, like, let's say they haven't found the right fit for them. We don't want to be like, nope, they need to be gone. You need to separate them, because that defeats the purpose. But we definitely don't want it to be like a long standing house where they're there with us for a year, and then you're like, oh, shoot, they haven't had parents for a whole year. We don't want that for them. So we just meet that need in the middle ground until they can find the right family.
Right. And again, keeping that sibling bond is like, again, I have lots of siblings, and my parents got split up, and I was never in the foster care system, but there was a real clear sense of security knowing that my siblings and I were going to be, wherever we were there together. It's not that we actually got along, but we were at least there.
Well, we encounter that too, but it's like at least they have the 1, 2, 3, 4 people in their life that get it. They were like, I know what's gone on. I know what's happened, and that's what's important too. And especially those little siblings, we take 0 to 17, because you have large sibling groups that have age spans, and so we don't want to say, we'll take them 0 to 12, and then you got that 13-year-old sibling that now has to go. So we take the whole sibling set as a whole if they're 0 to 17.
Do you, as you describe them as your kids, do you have any control over or say over the foster families that they go to, or is that all health and welfare?
That's pretty much them. I mean, we can like insert and say, hey, like,
I got a weird feeling or something.
Yeah, but usually, honestly, majority of the general foster families that I meet are amazing people too. So I think we have more of a say before they pick, like helping them find that right family. You know what I mean? Like, hey, here's some needs that we see in this child. Here's some wants that we like. This is a silly thing, but like, let's say a child's really afraid of dogs, and they've got a family who has 4 dogs. I'm gonna be like, you know what? That's probably not the right fit for this child, because they're afraid of dogs. So just trying to help work with them to help find that right fit for a family, a sibling group.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Don't take this the wrong way.
Yeah.
But how here you are as this person in 2018 who starts getting involved, just hosting informational things. And then within, a year's time, all of a sudden you're fostering 5 kids.
Yeah.
And then within another few months, you're working with a state to design this thing. And then you keep this dream and goal going all the way through COVID and the insanity of the world until you have this set of houses that has become this hub for this incredible process with all of these staff. And it's like, you were just this random person in a townhouse in 2018. And now
100%.
you're the head of a 32 staff organization that's keeping these foster kids together. Very few, I presume, in the state do this. Like, what? Like, how?
Well, I would say there's 2 parts to that. I think just obviously meeting every kid that I met and that came through my home, or just in any event that I did, I was just like, I have to do more. Like, I have to. I want to do more. I want to be able to meet this need. But also, I will go to say, your success is dependent on the people you surround yourself with. And I have people in my life that were like, I said this dream, and they were like, let's do it. And so I have just incredible friends that are now on staff that I've hired who make this a successful organization. And so that's really what it is. I feel like, I couldn't do it on my own, but having the right people around me who have the same passion and desire to help has really made us why we're here today.
There's an aspect of do it yourself that I see in this state that I have not seen anywhere else. And it's not like I'm like a world traveler, but there's an aspect of, well, you should do it yourself if you think this. Like, the number of people I've met who have just taken the bull by the horns are like, yeah, I guess I will do it. Like, whatever, I don't care. Like, you ever done this before? No, I don't care. Like, here I go. And, I fancy myself to like cut from a similar cloth. Nothing as impressive and as incredible as what you've done or other people. Like, I'm lowbrow in this. But was that something that you feel like you've always had? Because was this your first large scale, attempt at creating a large organization, or were you just, kind of like a youth pastor, minding your own business, enjoying your old life?
It's interesting because I'm a Christian, so I have faith-based, but I always had that desire in me. I always wanted to do some sort of organization that would be with adoption or foster care. It was just always deep in me since I was very young. So yeah, I had it in me. Did I have did I believe in myself? No. Like, I really didn't. I was like, I don't know if I can do this on my own. But definitely, like I said, going back to just, they always call me the dreamer. I'm the dreamer. I'm just like, okay, I see a need. Let's do it. I see how we can do this better. I see how we can do this better. And then I just bring people around me that actually make it happen, basically.
I need to hang out with people like you far more often.
Well, basically, when I first came up with this idea, I presented it to a friend of mine who's a videographer. Yeah. And I just was like, she's like, let's do it. So she created this beautiful video and we put it out there. We're like, I don't know if this is going to work. This is the idea we have. Put it out there. And right away, the support we got, we were like, this is going to work. Oh my gosh. And just people gave money towards us because I basically started it with nothing. I didn't have any money. I just was like, this is a dream. This is a desire I have. There's a need I see. And it all came together.
Did you incorporate, become a 501(c)(3) like right out of the block? So you're like, hey, we are a nonprofit.
Yeah, so people could donate to us.
Yeah, right. And they get on they're like, all right, she's not trying to get rich.
Yeah. No, I don't think the nonprofit world is a rich world, but maybe, I don't know, maybe someone else.
No, that's the point. Yeah. That's the point. Because and not that people shouldn't be able to make money. Yeah. Like, people should be able to make money. But I think especially when dealing with something like this, you're like, hey, look, this is a nonprofit. It is something that this person feels it's a signaling. It's a signaling that you're very convicted and you feel strongly about what you're actually doing, not turning it necessarily into a mass profit or something like that.
I mean, my dream would be one day that I would just be able to do it for free again, you know, like obviously in a position where I could, but obviously I am taken care of because I do have also 7 children in my home, but I would do this whether I got paid for it or not. I'm so passionate about it and I love it. And I love every kid that I get to meet through just being a part of this. And it's such a blessing and an honor. It's such a worthy field to work in, to love the children and be loved back.
Okay. Odds of me being able to ever do what you've done, 0. But I think most people hearing this are feeling that way, which is like, okay, I could never do what you did, right? And I think you said it beautifully, which is people judge based on their capacity. Is that how you put it?
Yeah, I always say that.
Which again, what an incredible sentiment. That's totally true. It's like, yeah, they're not capable of doing it. So they tell everyone else, it can't be done. It's like, no, you can't do it.
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
So let's be clear. I won't be able to do what you did.
Yeah.
But for the people that are worried or that are inclined to get engaged in some capacity and perhaps thinking about fostering, becoming a foster family or house or something like that, what are their concerns? And what are their concerns that they shouldn't have? Because I think a lot of people, like you said, like, oh, those kids are going to have some problems. Or like, oh, it's going to be tough. It's like, okay, yeah, but like every kid is tough.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like.
They're just like your children. I mean, and, you know, like people always think there's like a lot of rules people have. Like, I wouldn't foster out of age order, you know, like birth order. You want younger than your kids in your home. I have a teenager right now in my home. A lot of people are scared of teens. She's the most incredible teenager. My kids love her. She loves my kids. I'm never worried about anything with her. I do think as a foster parent, you have to use wisdom because, you know, like if you know a kid has gone through things and you might have younger kids, like, well, it's probably not wisdom if they've been exposed to things and you have little kids. Just use wisdom, ask questions.
Right.
So when you go into, you know, fostering and you get a call, people think, oh, you just have to say yes to every kid. You don't. Right. You use wisdom, you know, and I don't say yes to every kid. That comes, you know, that they call me for. And so I always ask questions, you know, are they safe with little kids? Do they have any sexual trauma? Because like, there's just things that when you have children in your home, you want to be cautious of. And I always say that my kids are my first priority, but we love to welcome children in our home if we can. So we have kids coming and go. I just had a little girl move out yesterday. And then I had a little boy come, he's staying with us for a week and he moved in last night. So it's like, we just constantly, and we love it. So
well, I mean, obviously, like you talk about, and you're just glowing. You're just glowing.
And my children love it too. You know, like when we get a middle of the night call and I'm like, hey, there's a 7 and 8-year-old coming. And they're like, they get so excited and they'll clean their room. And they're like, the kids come in, they're like, here's your bed for the night. And I mean, it's just beautiful to watch. And, you know, I always say like, I might not be the best educational mom. Like I'm not super emphasis on like schooling and stuff like that. I'm pretty lackadaisical on that. But
oh, you're a terrible person. You're terrible.
But I was like, what my kids have is empathy and compassion and they love people. And I feel like that is a really good thing. And they're smart in school too. But I'm just not like, I'm like, oh, you need a day home from school. Let's go do something fun, you know. But I just feel like
somebody a cookie.
Yes. I'm like, sure. But I just feel like what they've learned and they all want to foster when they grow up. I feel like I'm a proud parent of my children, that's who they are and they love to help, you know, others around them. So, yeah.
God, I am so taken by this. It is so beautiful. So again, but coming back to it, what do you think the things most people that would be foster parents are worried about? And is there validity there? Is it essentially like, look, the thing most people would be concerned about, I'm wondering, is that they get worried that they have to take anyone. And that
no, you don't.
In reality, you can be selective. You can say, hey, look, these are I do want to help, but I do have
parameters.
Parameters. I don't want to take 10 kids. Let's start with number of kids and then, you know, ages of kids and things of that nature.
And for instance, I don't foster teen boys because I'm a single woman. I just don't. I don't, that's just my one thing. I will take up to like a 12-year-old boy. But everybody has, and there's other single women who foster teen boys, and that's good for them. I just don't. But I will take any age of teen girl. I've fostered a pregnant teen who's a mom. I've had all ages of kids and all situations. But yeah, you do not have to say yes to every call. And let's say you do give it a try and it maybe is not working out. You're not bound to that for forever.
Right.
And this is what the first call I got when I became a foster parent, I said no to. And I felt so guilty. I was like, oh my gosh, how I just went through this whole process and I said no. And so I called the lady back and she was like, your no is someone else's yes. Be released. Your no is someone else's yes. And I always say that too. Like I can't be the right fit for every kid. And my home's not the right fit for every kid, but there's another home out there that is the right fit for them. So just feel free to be like, okay, no, that's not right. But just as you're looking for the right fit, your home, it's more important that they find the right fit for them too, the children and in care. So
right. That's great. So you don't have to take everyone.
Nope.
Your no is somebody else's yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
You can have your parameters set up.
Yep.
How long are these? If you got to a point with somebody who you had been fostering for like 20 days or 30, I don't know what the average, but or like
it's
90 days, and you're kind of like, hey, look, my life is changing, or things are just different than they were when this started. What's the process of saying like, hey, look, I've loved having you here, but like, you got to go. Like, what is that? Does it take a long time?
No, it can. I mean, you're just going to have to let the worker know, like, hey, for whatever reason.
Yeah, whatever it is.
Maybe it's even for them, like the best interest for them, another fit. So
right.
They just have to find another home that would be open to. And I would approach it like, this is amazing. We found something else that's better for you or whatever, instead of like, you got to get out of here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Listen, I don't have the vocabulary to say correctly, but yeah, I mean, obviously you wouldn't tell that to a kid, but there was a beautiful book I read called The Time Machine Works by Frank Tate, gentleman I knew. And he went in and out of, he had a very rough upbringing in Northern California and was in the orphanage for some time, and then, was essentially fostered with various people. And he got put with a family that his mom had a relationship with, and his mom was in and out of drugs and all kinds of problems, right? And so he got put with this person, and of course he recounts it as this little kid. I think he was 7 or 8 or something, as, his mom's crying and, talking to this older lady. It's like a grandma figure, right? And she's like, of course. And the grandfather initially was like, hey, come on in, kid. Like, let me just help you. We're making dinner. Very welcoming. But as the time went on, he realized that the family recognized the mom wasn't coming back. And she would do this. She'd drop the kid with somebody and then like reappear 6 months later or a year later or something like that. And as that realization dawned on the family, although the mother in the family, the grandmother figure, was kind of like, shoot, okay, like, what are we going to do? The grandfather got really frustrated because here's this, 60-something-year-old guy who was not intending to like raise another child. Yeah. And he just started feeling like the kid knew that he had worn out his welcome. And that was like this really rough, very sad, right? Really upsetting. The book is optimistic in the end, but like the point is, you go through some stuff. So if you are fostering, you have the capacity to raise your hand, connect with the social work and say like, hey, look, we gotta find a different room, a different place for this kid right now, because and
sometimes what they'll do is like, there's always that trial period where it might get a little hard, but then you get over that hump. I've fostered kids from 3 days to a year, and then obviously my forever kids. But there's just like, sometimes it takes a little time for them to get in their niche, and you just got to overcome that. Yeah, right. But sometimes it just might not be the right fit, and that's okay. So they'll work with you too, but they might send in like resources and stuff to try to make it work. But if it just or like, let's say you're like, shoot, I'm actually moving out of state. Then, or something happened. Maybe you lost your job or whatever it is. They'll work with you too to help find a new,
now,
place for them.
When you're saying work with you, what are the other services? So like, say somebody takes on a foster kid. What are the other services that are opened up to them? Because I think one thing that people feel as well is like, oh, I'm going to take this on. What if it's too much and I'm all on my own? And even though my heart's in the right place, like I might not have the capacity to do all of these things. And I know that there were some programs up in Alaska where my dad was living at the time that were supplying him with, some degree of food assistance and other things like that. Like, what are those programs for?
So here, when you become a foster parent, you get assigned an RPM, which is like really, really beneficial because that person is like a vetted foster parent who's been through it. So
what's an RPM?
Resource. Oh goodness.
resource person,
parent, something,
manager,
something through the department. So basically they come alongside you and mentor you. So like, let's say, oh, I'm having something going on with this kid. This is what's happening. They'll come in and help guide you. They also help set you up, the kids with counseling. And one of the biggest things that I found that is most beneficial for especially foster moms is community. And so we've been really working on building like a community. Like we all went out to dinner in January and just like, hey, I'm going through this. Like, do you have any advice for that? And when I started, I didn't know anybody else who fostered. So it's just as beneficial. I have other people like, I've been there. I know this is what worked for us. This is the way to go about it, all those things. And then obviously you get medical support. I don't know if there's food. I mean, you could probably figure out a food bank on your own, but you get WIC, I guess. That's one thing if your kid's under 5. But I would just say probably the biggest support would be that RPM to you because they're going to guide you and help you through all that.
Yeah, everybody loves a guide. I would love one too. Like,
yes,
somebody I can call.
Like, I've been there, I've done that, and sometimes they even like show up at your house and help, de-escalate. When a child's kind of escalated out in
spinning out of control,
they can come in and help de-escalate them. One of the things too is we all go through training to help kids who have gone through trauma. And so that's also been beneficial. It's just like a switch in your brain. Like a lot of times we judge these kids based on the behaviors, but we forget that what's happened to them and why they're doing that. Right. So like, let's say you have a kid who's been sexually abused and they're acting out. Like, what? We're mad at the kid? Wait, let's take it back a little bit and go back.
Right.
They've been abused. They've been taught these behaviors. Now we want to help heal them from those behaviors,
right.
And so I even had a little girl one time, she's 5. And when they called me, they'd said, oh, she's doing this at the playground, basically saying that she had been abused sexually. And I was like, well, I'm just going to keep an eye on her. She's 5. And I'm brushing her hair. And she said, everyone thinks I'm a bad girl, but I'm not a bad girl. And I'm not kidding you. My heart broke. She's probably heard the whispers. She's probably heard people say these things about her. And it literally broke my heart. Like, I was like, this is not your fault. None of this is your fault. You are 5 years old. And it probably happened, obviously, before she was 5. But isn't that like break your heart? And then people are judging these kids based on their behaviors. But we forget they've been abused. They've been taken advantage of. They've had bad things happen to them. And so I always try to look at the kids through the lens of like, okay, you might be acting out right now, but there is trauma, bad stuff that has happened to you. And we want to love you through that. So I know you're kidding. I know. I always tell people too, like one of the ways, especially with little girls and teen girls, is like doing their hair. I'm going to cry too, but they will open up and just tell you the most horrific things as you're braiding their hair or brushing their hair. And you're like, all these other homes said no to you based on what's written on this piece of paper. Because when they call you for a kid, they kind of give you the narrative. Like, this is what, has gone on. This is what we're seeing in them. And a lot of people, like, okay, I can't do that. But you're not looking the child in the face and hearing them say, everybody thinks I'm a bad girl. And it breaks your heart, the things that, and then you're like, okay, let me love them through this. Let me walk with them through this because they need healing. So.
They do. Mm-hmm. And they're just babies.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That is really rough. Again, I was not in foster care, but as a younger kid, when my family imploded, things were definitely rough. And the parent I was living with really was going through a rough time. And I see it differently now, obviously. Like, okay, if I was 38 and my whole world imploded and I looked at myself and realized I didn't really have much going on and all this stuff was terrible, I have a lot of compassion. Mm-hmm. Right? But because of that, we were like feral children, and we had, as every child does, you have varying degrees of traumas from your past and whatnot. And I was the youngest, and that was not great. And I remember being, 9 or 10 and like trying to go to swim practice and realizing that, here I was like super overweight and I wasn't acting appropriately. I have a very good memory. I remember those things really well. And just feeling like I was like, oh, I'm this outcast. I'm like this bad kid. And I'm feeling like it was wrong. Like I shouldn't have the burden of feeling like I have to defend my existence as like a 9-year-old.
Yeah.
right. And again, I thankfully got through it, and I found, mentors and, got older and developed my own capacity to be the person that I wanted to be in the world. But just the idea that you have some young person who recognizes the world, views them poorly, and they are wholly incapable of changing that or like being a different person. It's so heartbreaking.
It really is. It's just, and like there, I think there's a stereotype of foster kids that they're bad kids or dirty kids or whatever. And you always have to remind people they're not in care because they did anything. They're not in care because they did anything.
You're paying for the sins of your parents.
Yeah. They're innocent kids, and their behaviors are an indication of what's happened in their life. And so, yeah, I just feel like every kid, I always just say this, I never will get used to their stories. Never. It will always break my heart, the things you hear. But I was just going to say, going back to feral, when they call you for children, and, we've gotten calls for feral kids before, and you kind of hear that, like, oh, what is that going to look like? I don't know what that's going to look like. Is they run around naked all over? You just don't know. But we had a call for a feral kid a couple months ago, and I was like, yeah, we'll take him. And he's an angel. He was an angel. So it's just interesting, the way I always say this too, if you were to look at me on paper, I probably don't look good on paper. Single mom of 5 children, it doesn't look good on paper until
and here
you know
you're a lovely
my
person.
Story, right? Yeah. So I feel like people might just count me on paper too.
You didn't have cats before, did you? You
No,
weren't like a cat lady.
No, I'm not I like other people's animals. I have too many children. But yeah.
Yeah, the not recognizing that kids are going to be a product of their environment deeply, and then just reducing them down to their behaviors.
Yeah.
I remember I had a sibling who went off to, a sister of mine went off to, she was older, she was like 10, 12 years older than me. She goes off to college, and she goes to this exchange program, and over in France. She goes to France, right?
Nice,
comes
beautiful.
back. And I remember her coming back and staying with us, and when my house was completely imploding, and her being so upset that she had to stay with us and all these things. It's or that, we act in a certain way. It's what do you, I even remember at 9 and 10, what do you think I'm going through?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm the youngest here. I'm getting trashed on. I met with my aunt at one point after I had graduated from college, and I was trying to understand what had happened to my family, because here I had met this girl that I was living with, and I wanted to propose to her, and she's currently my wife. So I had met my wife, and when we were dating, I was trying to understand what that relationship was in my family, and why things went south. So I'd go and have lunch with her. She worked in the area I was living, and she told me one time, she said, look, I came over to your house and you were 8, right? Or 9. And she was there was this bottle of ketchup that had Heinz 57 or whatever that had fallen out of the cabinet, and it had shattered, a glass bottle, not plastic, shattered on the floor. It was completely dry. It had been there for days, broken glass, the whole thing. And, she told me some other things, and I really realized from that, it's well, no shit. I was a crazy little kid. I was living in squalor, right? And I remember having the county pest guy come to our house because we had a pool in our backyard. Yay, we have a pool in our backyard. No, the pool was half full, and it was greener than the greenest algae you've ever seen. And we were actually, to some degree, we were producing some level of mosquito larvae for the county in the pool. He came over and had to treat it as if it was a standing water bog thing. And that's the world I was living in. And I look back on myself now. It's okay, look, man, you did the best you could, right? And again, you're not responsible. It's not your fault. You're wearing dirty clothes.
Yeah.
It's not your fault. You have these crazy reactions or bad behaviors, especially at that age. It's they're going to be a product of what you're putting them through.
Yeah.
And again, just the idea that people write young people like that off, it hits my heart really hard.
That's the same with me. That's why I want to shine light on it. And we really try to work to get as many people involved. I mean, the more what we call general homes available to take on sibling groups and teens, the better we are. And so I just have a heart to see people step up and open their doors to children in care, because they need all of us. And whether you're able to open your doors or just get involved in the ways that you can, through our organization, we have volunteers that come and help. People bring dinners. We have an essential bag project that we just launched last summer. So we take a duffel bag, and it's not just for the kids in our homes, but for anybody who gets a placement, we will deliver a duffel bag to your door it's the first week's essential needs. So toothbrush, toothpaste, hair,
Right.
a
All the things
stuffy,
you
a
could forget.
blanket, outfits, pajamas, most of the kids come into walk through my doors, walk through any of our homes with just what they have on. They're not like coming through with prepared.
Like a little roller bag.
No, they don't have that. And if they do, it's very rare that a kid has a packed bag. Usually they're walking through the doors with what they have on and, holey shoes, worn out clothes. So we really try to meet that need. And it's beautiful. I mean, watching them open these bags, like I delivered one to an 8-year-old. She opened it up. She's like, a squishmallow, like just screaming. She's like, I've always wanted one. And these little simple things that, we provide for our kids all the time, they don't ever get. And so it's really cool seeing the community come around and support us in that. So like you might not be able to take a child home, but if you want to fill a bag for us that we could deliver, amazing. So we can all do our part to help kids, vulnerable kids in our community.
Listen, this is going to have to be first of many. I want to have updates on this stuff. I want to hear about events you guys are putting on.
Okay.
I want to help you.
Yeah.
How can people find you and donate?
So go to fosterandheart.org, and we do have a donate button. We have a place where you can also fill out an inquiry to volunteer at any of our events. Just come hang out with us, get to know kids, and get involved. So if you want to deliver duffel bags too, we also have an opportunity to do that.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for what you're doing.
Yes.
Thank you for coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you.
Yes. Thank you.
MTU Studios is the proud producer for the Ada County Sheriff Podcast, the Idaho Wildlife Federation Podcast, the State Representative Ted Hill Podcast, the Idaho State PTA Podcast, and many more. If you or your organization is thinking about starting a podcast, MTU Studios would love to help. Just check out mtustudios.com.